The AM 560 mobile app on your Alexa-powered smart speaker and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. On the good side, the good news side for Mayor Triple Threat, outgoing Mayor Lori Lightfoot. You know, in about 30 years, they'll probably name expressway interchange after her.
No, they won't.
And in about 20 years after that, in about 50 years, they'll actually complete it.
Oh, right. Exactly. Hey, oh, yes, because Jane Byrne's the last person. What, 1983? She lost to Mayor Harold Washington.
And before that, Michael Blandick lost because of a natural occurrence, a snowstorm, and his handling of it. Lori Lightfoot lost because of man-made disasters or triple threat-made disasters, policy disasters. But let's hear from the prospective new mayor, Brandon Johnson. Let's go, Brandon.
Oh, I know.
When he was asked about the looting going on in the city during one of the two riots that occurred under Triple Threat's watch.
There were three.
Well, I mean, it was a daily riot, frankly.
Right. I mean, yeah,
to varying degrees.
Exactly.
Here's what Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson had to say about looting. Yeah, you can't condone, we call that stealing, too. Stealing is also an acceptable description.
Crime, yeah, committing crimes.
Yes, looting is bad, but the real looting we should be talking about is not what's happening on the streets, you see.
Loot because that's how they can eat?
The real answer is, how do we make sure, the question is, how do we make sure that people can eat? Look, no one is going to condone, behavior that quite frankly speaks to a level of desperation.
So you're not condoning looting?
I'm saying that people are acting out of desperation. We don't want a society that is acting out of desperation, but you have to pay attention to the cries that people have.
So you're not condoning looting?
There's no way to embrace that. What I'm saying is you can't condone the looting that corporations continue to do every single day when they take tax dollars from black, brown, white folks all over the city of Chicago so that they can turn a profit.
And that was Micah Mater from WGN.
Yeah, the real looting is by corporations turning profits, and he's going to put an end to that, not to the looting, to the profits.
Nothing to see here. They can take what they want. Stand
well,
orders.
It's good. No more looting by Citadel, no more looting by Caterpillar, no more looting by Boeing, no more looting by Tyson Foods, no more looting by the Chicago Bears. He's going to build upon the end to corporate looting that Lori Lightfoot started. Sounds good. Steve Moore, Economist, Govzilla, joins us. Steve, what do you think? Finally an end to looting in Chicago.
Yeah, get rid of all the white folks. That's the problem.
and corporations.
Yeah, right. But look, I'm in a great mood this morning. I mean, that was an important election for people to, ding dong, the witch is dead, right? I mean, you have, unfortunately in Chicago, and this is saying a lot, the worst mayor in America by a long shot. And there's a lot of competition out there, but nobody who could hold a candle to Lori Lightfoot in terms of incompetence in everything. I mean, in shutting the way she responded to COVID, the way she responded to the riots, the taxes, the fact that she hasn't shut down any of the miserable schools. I mean, you guys talk about this every morning for the last 5 years. So bravo to the voters of Chicago for at least running her out of town. Now, Dan, you and I talked about this last week, and Amy, you can be the referee here, but I'm kind of high on Vallis, but you were kind of saying, well, he's not going to be a savior. So what is your guys' opinion? Because I'm going to tell everybody around the country what Dan and Amy say about this race. What are the stakes here?
It's divided. I'll let Amy go first. She's more pro-Vallis.
Well, I'm pro-Vallis because he's going to restore law and order to the streets of Chicago, not only by hiring more police officers, and he comes from a line of people who served, but he's going to confront Kim Foxx, that's what I've been told, in the Cook County State's Attorney's Office to try to get her, because she's letting these, violent offenders out on electronic monitoring, and they're committing more crimes and even murdering people to the tune of 25 people were killed last year. Those were preventable homicides.
Yeah, and then
what will Vallis do will he support school choice in Chicago?
Yes, he will.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, what's there not to like?
Yeah, so I know this may come as a surprise to you, but sometimes politicians say things they don't mean, and
Right.
sometimes a track record is indicative of a prospective record. And Paul Vallis is a institutional man who is of the don't make no waves, don't back no losers variety in Chicago that we've seen for many, many generations. So this is not some young upstart who's come in to shake things up. This is a guy who started out as a legislative assistant to a powerful Chicago Dem family, state senator from the South Side, and has spent his career as sort of a Green Eye Shades functionary and somebody who has never been at the front of the parade leading any sort of reform movement. And one more thing, and now what we see him doing is abject pandering to the radical left, thinking somehow he can win the identitarian game against Brandon Johnson, which he can't.
Yeah, well, that's a problem. But I will say this, that, if you can, look, he's competent, though, right? And that's a big step up.
Yes, but he's going against Brandon Johnson, who actually, to this day, still works for the CTU, former teacher. He gets paid $100,000 as a community activist. And if he wins, the CTU is going to be on the 5th floor at City Hall.
Yeah, so here's what the reason I'm asking this guys is because I just wrote my column for the Hotline this morning, which I know you guys read every morning, and many of your listeners do. And the title I put on it was, it's pretty good versus evil.
Yeah.
How's that?
Maybe.
Yeah. Pretty good versus evil.
No,
do I have the evil part right?
Well, yeah. I mean, but Brandon Johnson is an authentic Marxist.
Yes.
And the question that you have to ask yourself is, what is in the short-term and medium-term best interests of Chicago? Does it need to get worse, and that what spawns an authentic reform movement, or do you have somebody like Paul Vallis who more orderly in a more orderly fashion manages the decline, and you never get any reform movement?
Yeah. Well, I think at this point, it would be such a disaster for the city if Johnson wins. The city's done, right? Because there will be no school reform, there will be no budget reform, there will be no tax reform, and this is the Dunkirk moment, guys. In my opinion, for the great city of Chicago. Am I wrong?
No, I mean he'll coalesce to the union, give them anything they want. He will not care about the people of Chicago, our kids.
Yeah,
it's just and he's going to put a head tax on companies that work downtown. He's going to have a commuter tax. He wants to raise a hotel motel tax.
Right.
I can go. I mean,
yes, he would be.
Tax.
That's not the question. He's a maximum Marxist. He's the real McCoy.
Right.
He would pursue catastrophic economic and K through 12 policies across the board. But that's not the question. The question you asked is,
do you think he would be worse than Lori Lightfoot?
Yes, and she even said that too.
Really?
Repeatedly.
She said that like we're supposed to take her opinion for it. But that's not the question. That's not the question. The question that you asked was, is this a Dunkirk moment? And the problem that we have in answering that question is, unlike Dunkirk, you do not have the populace rallying to engage to save their land, their homeland, if you will, like the British did for their homeland, their motherland. You don't have that. You have the same historic turnout. You have the same distribution. You have 55% of the electorate that turned out vote for a Marxist of one stripe or another. So no, the answer is what you wish for versus what is are two different things. You can wish this was a Dunkirk moment, but I don't see any evidence it's going to be.
So you don't see Vallis as being like a Rudy Giuliani type figure that would really turn around the city?
No.
Come on, Dan. I was in such a good mood before.
Well, if you wanted to celebrate,
listen to Amy.
Have you watched Brandon Johnson?
If you wanted to celebrate Lightfoot's demise, then we could all have a day of celebration before we all die tomorrow under maximum Marxism. But you chose to look prospectively.
And Stephen Moore, I don't know if you follow me on Twitter.
How do you put up with this guy every day?
Right.
I do yoga. But have you seen Brandon Johnson speak? He's charismatic. He's positive. He's well-spoken. He's tall. He dresses very well.
Yes.
He's the son of a preacher.
Guy,
I mean, he's the shiny new object in the room. This is like Mayor Lightfoot all over again, but 4 years later with a different person.
I think you've nailed it, my friend Amy, and I think that's what the charismatic leaders are the ones that are the most dangerous, right, Dan?
Well, you don't have to worry about charisma when it comes to Paul Vallis.
Oh, he was fumbling and stumbling with the microphone last night. I mean, if you watched his speech, and but Paul Vallis was gracious and was not attacking, didn't even mention Brandon Johnson's name, and Brandon Johnson called him pretty much an insurrectionist. People who voted for Paul Vallis were insurrectionists, were January 6 people. I mean, it was so. He was trying to be funny, but then it got a little ugly.
Well,
quick.
Here I'm speaking of as a Chicagoan who spent all my years growing up in Chicago. I will not vote for anyone who will not bring the Bears back to Chicago.
Oh, they're gone.
They're gone.
Is that a done deal?
That's a done deal. They're going to Arlington Heights, my friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jesus,
yeah.
They'll still be called the Chicago Bears if that makes you feel any better.
Well, there's a lot of work to be done. Let's just at least spend 24 hours celebrating the fact that the witch is dead, and then we can deal with the new witch. And you're right, though, Dan. I mean, you make a good point. You get people. It's like Barack Obama was a very charismatic figure. He didn't have any economic knowledge. He was not a free market guy, but he won on the basis of his personality. I hope that doesn't happen in Chicago this time because there's no time to lose. I mean, Chicago is going to be a hollowed out city.
Brandon Johnson knows nothing about business or the economy. So he's a former teacher and again, a social justice warrior.
One last question, by the way. Can you confirm or deny that Brandon Johnson has been a defund the police?
Yes. He said he would not hire cops right away. No,
defund the police. Of
he's
course.
A total defunder of police.
I mean,
I thought he said the other day he's not. I thought he said the other day he's not for defunding them.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, he sort of couches it. We got to support the police, but we need social worker task force and so on and so forth. Look, this is again, what part of maximum Marxism is unclear? That is who Brandon Johnson is. So pick an issue, filter it through cultural Marxism, and you'll come up with Brandon Johnson's actual view, which he, frankly, oftentimes he's not afraid to share in no uncertain terms.
And this would explain how he got the teachers' union's endorsement.
And SEIU.
They love him, right?
They love him. But they vote.
They do.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't roll the teachers' unions, at some point, you have to roll back the teachers' unions in Chicago because you cannot have a family in a city where half the kids don't know how to read and write.
Hey, let's get a quick update on something that is potentially salvageable. That's our country. How are Republicans doing? They're not firing out of the gate in 2023. I mean, they have some of these committees going, and that's all well and good. But what's your take as Biden's touring the country, repeating the canard about Republicans wanting to cut Medicaid and Medicare? How are Republicans doing?
They're in the fetal position.
Oh, great.
Sounds
More good
about
news.
right.
I mean, they're Republicans, They're in the fetal position.
Hope they're protecting their head.
I have to say, though, McCarthy, and I'm not a huge McCarthy fan, the Speaker of the House, but I have to give him high marks for the way he's handled Biden so far. And he's been tough. And by the way, that's in large part because I think that coup that happened at the beginning of the year actually gave him some backbone. So I think McCarthy's ready to fight. But we only have 222 Republicans. That means all you have to do is peel off 6 out of 222. And, Biden scores a victory for his massive spending. The debt is up, folks, $6 trillion in 2 years since Biden has been in office. $6 trillion is the new forecast in terms of how much higher it would be even under the Trump baseline. And by the way, I love Trump, but even Trump was a big spender. How do you do that? How do you deteriorate the budget by $6 trillion so quickly? I didn't think it was possible.
All right, well, I guess we have to go back to just celebrating Lori Lightfoot being deposed. Let's just focus on that for a minute.
Well, that ain't nothing, my friend.
That ain't nothing. It ain't nothing. That's true. Steve Moore, economist, Govzilla author. Thanks as always, Steve.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Did the Protestant Reformation suffer a premature death? Absolutely, argues the riveting book, Reviving the Reformation by Dr. Daniel Lang. The book of Acts chapter 21 verse 20 reports that myriads or